Okay, Charlie Kirk's alleged assassin, Tyler Robinson, lived with transgender partner, a source said. I wonder if there's any video here. This is Erica Kirk, his wife, and if you haven't seen this, check it out when we are wrapped up here today. I mean, unbelievable that she was able to get up and at a podium, at a lectern rather, and speak about TPUSA and her husband Charlie Kirk just assassinated. Parts of it that were very tough to watch. But she was, as I understand, and I'm open to being corrected, but extremely supportive of Charlie Kirk and his work. And it shows, because every man who has failed has a woman behind him that, to one degree or another, is the cause of the failure. And you have heard, it was an old saying, colloquialism, that every great man has a great woman behind him. And that's true. God meant, nature meant for us to function together as a team. And so many and many heroic and wonderful men throughout time have talked about the support of their wives or partners. And so you can see in her determination, I think, the kind of warmth and encouragement and inspiration that she gave to Charlie. You can imagine there are always going to be setbacks. A big donor pulls out here. A big donor there might pull out, this school cancel here or that school cancel there on his tours, interviews being canceled. And of course, he had an immense amount of luck. That's another subject. But without question, she could not have been pulling him down. At a bare minimum, she couldn't have been hampering him, making it harder for him to do his work, making it harder. No, it's just not possible. He could not have achieved all that he achieved. So, a rare find. You could hear what I was saying about it, but this is good because I'll be able to rewind it. All right.
Everyone listening tonight across America, the movement my husband built will not die. It won't. I refuse to let that happen. It will not die. All of us will refuse to let that happen. No one will ever forget my husband's name, and I will make sure of it.
Man, that's inspiring. No wonder so many people are inspired by her and her determination.
It will become stronger, bolder, louder, and greater than ever. My husband's mission will not end, not even for a moment.
Amazing. What a lucky guy. I mean, this guy was lucky in so many ways. He called himself blessed all the time. Wow.
And one of Charlie's greatest talents was his ability, this phenomenal ability to choose great people to follow him. He could always find...
It's kind of like yours truly. Only the good stay. The garbage, they show up, they're not interested. They don't like the idea of self-improvement, of actually saving our people, and they move on. They don't like that their favorite scapegoat that makes them feel better about themselves is not having a case prosecuted against them. They move on. They show up and they don't hear the abstractions They hear talk about white people objecting to our victimization based on our birth, and they move on.
The ones who could handle any setback. And it's almost like he knew. He could see it in you. Even when you couldn't see it in yourself, he just knew.
Charlie Kirk's alleged assassin, Tyler Robinson, was living with a transgender partner who was in the process of transitioning from male to female. A law enforcement source confirmed. What did I say? What did I say? I said I gave two options for the likely murderer. The one I said very unlikely, but at least it's a scintilla of a possibility, and that is that this was somebody who objected to Charlie Kirk not being anti-Jew and decided to kill him because he's a gatekeeper to that issue, as they would see it. But then the far more likely case was that it would end up being a transgender, and it ends up being a guy attracted to guys and in a relationship with a transgender. Tyler here considered himself a transgender according to the current reportage, and of course, all subject to change. Considered himself an advocate for transgenderism, which makes sense if that's his. Do we call it a boyfriend or girlfriend? I don't know. You all might, you look at me and you're like, well, why would Jason even? Because YouTube is owned and operated by anti-whites. And at least as I understand it, I could be wrong, but there are certainly anti-whites in the entity of YouTube. And while there are other people out there like Jeremy Hambley that can say transgenderism is sick and it's not a real thing and have nothing happen to his account because on YouTube, because he gives so many conservatives, so much conservative argumentation, and he has such a large audience that would all fume and bubble over if he were to have his channel get a strike or taken down or what have you. They let him do that. If you're going to continue poisoning the white race with abstractionisms, you will get more leash. Somebody like me, no leash. So I will tell you right now, there are wonderful, just like there are wonderful pedophiles, there are wonderful transgender people. Ear is against the door. So he is a transgender advocate being reported right now in a relationship with a transgender. So a guy, born a guy, now a girl. Lance Twiggs, if you can believe this name. Can the name be real? Could that actually be real? Could he have, she now have changed it to Lance Twiggs? I mean, twig and berries is slang for male genitalia. So lance him off, twig, I don't know. Tyler Robinson, though, that was his boyfriend, girlfriend, born a boy, and then is a girl, so I guess it's a girlfriend. And this person, also a furry. And how do I know that? Well, it's being reported that way at the moment, but subject to change. And in photographs I've seen, two of them wearing furry outfit. I mean, it looks like something a furry would wear to somebody who knows nothing about it. So it looks like something a furry would wear. And Tyler here used, according to the reportage now, furry vernacular, something about bulge noticing. And so in other words, that as described in one report, attracted to what looks like a girl, but clearly has a penis. So, but that's perfectly normal. It used to be considered transgenderism a mental illness in the West before that notion was white erased, but it's perfectly normal today. So he was in this relationship and living with this person, and they were in a Discord with over 20 people, and it's been reported that at least 6 knew about the assassination. Now, Lance is claiming that she knew nothing about, but of course, she would claim not to know anything about an assassination. I guess we'll end up seeing what happens. In my opinion, what should happen is that everyone who knew about it should be charged with it as pulling the trigger. This is a Western norm that I feel coming from my bones. If you knew, if you were participating by way of knowing that it was going to happen, then you should suffer the exact same consequence. I also understand that in Utah, they have 2 forms of execution, and that is lethal injection and firing squad. I think the only appropriate thing is for Tyler to be shot dead with the rifle he used on Charlie Kirk. Now, mind you, I'm not like this sycophant for Charlie Kirk. In fact, we're going to talk a little bit about him a little bit more and the kind of things that he was pushing. So I'm not a sycophant for him, but nonetheless, this is how this behavior should be treated. We're also going to talk about the conservatives, the Christians, feeling their oats, coming into their own now with these firings of the people who celebrated and laughed and mocked and ridiculed, found it intensely risible that Charlie Kirk was assassinated in this grisly way. And even the actual imagery, the spectacle of it. And why is that? So remind me, we want to get back to that so we don't miss it. All of these notions, how is this relevant to us? Well, we're gonna speak through, as we already started, about how it's relevant to Church of the West and what we do. All of these other arguments, all of these other conspiracies about the schmucks, the Jew spurgs hating the Jews, they're going to blame it on the Jews, and you'll see this thing wind out, as I talked about on Wednesday and Thursday. You'll see this thing roll out. It's like souls looking for their favorite endoscope. That's what it is. They're going to fit it into their hole, no matter what it is, no matter what's actually happening. There's a lot of talk about, and let me just finish that point. Ignore that stuff. It can't help you. It can't help us. It can't make a people out of the vitiated white race. It can't improve our situation one jot. Those are things that we can never know. You can never know the answer to wild conspiracies. And you'll feel that allure because we seek to know the unknown. So when somebody, it's a trick. When somebody presents that, you've got to immediately reject it. Like if you have a problem, you look at too much pornography, and you got a problem with it as a consequence, it's like interfering with your life. Then when you feel that urge, you specifically have to stop it right there. You specifically have to use the conscious mind to come in and in guillotine style, cut the head off it. Not literally, of course, because wow, but cut the head off it. But those things, that's not me. And these folks will make these specious arguments, these lying arguments. Oh, Jason wants to protect the Jews, or Jason wants to protect the deep state, or Jason wants to protect. That's me protecting you. That's me protecting you. I'm trying to keep you from going off on a path that can only be harmful to you. And harmful to our people as a consequence of you being embroiled in idiocy. You can't know. So you got all these content creators. And you have a bunch of people who are normally Jew spurgs. They just hate Jews, but they're turning now to Michael Savage. This guy is like radically, proudly Jewish. And he's also ancient. The guy is a literal fossil. And they're like, well, he's really got some. I'm going to cite Michael Savage about how strange it is that when Tyler got off the roof, you didn't see a firearm. And then the FBI says they found the firearm, the Mauser 30-06, in that copse. By the way, that's a word that means a small stand of woods, of trees. So they found it in the, well, first of all, when you look at the video, he's clearly got some kind of a jacket or a hoodie or something. And it looks to me like it stays pretty straight. But I guess it's at least arguable that maybe it bends enough that it couldn't be a rifle. But it begs the question, why necessarily would the FBI have told you the truth about where they found the firearm? So people like Savage and all of these others can spin these yarns about he didn't have the rifle when he hopped off the roof and they found the rifle. Did he occupy an hour and a half of your time? Well, he supposedly assembled the rifle when he was in the woods. Somebody who was here mentioned that he had the rifle in his pants leg. And at the time, I hadn't seen the video of him walking through the neighborhood. He did. It was literally in his right pants leg. He's limping that right leg. So he didn't have it in his backpack, disassembled. They said they found a screwdriver that could have been used for the scope. And who knows what else is up there. You don't have all of the answers. He could have left the firearm on the roof. Why even bother to take it? It might have been in that hoodie that looked pretty rigid to me when he hopped off the roof. And fully assembled, not disassembled and then reassembled in the woods. Anyhow, none of that's beneficial. So I recommend that anybody start talking about that kind of stuff, you just move right past them. Occam's razor. This is obviously everywhere we're turning today. We see so many of these like bizarre psychotic attacks. And then after the fact, we find out, oh, the person was a transgender or had been a transgender and was like with this Robin, wanted to go back, didn't like that the transition process and what he was becoming, according to one of the articles I read, at least one. We find out this so often. So then you have a guy that here, Charlie Kirk is speaking out against, and this guy is anti-white to the bone, to the marrow, to the furry. He is anti-white to the furry. That's going to now replace the nth degree. It's the furry degree. And they want to take the conversation away from anti-whiteism and focus it on Jews. Focus it on the deep state. Focus it on anything but anti-whiteism. Isn't that something you should ask questions about? Why do you want to change the subject matter from anti-whiteism and the victimization of the white race, especially when there is so much to learn here when it comes to so much proof of the power of anti-whiteism over everything else that's out there? And so therefore a teaching lesson. Why would you want to deflect from that and instead talk about the state of Israel again, Jews again, the deep state again? Why would you want to do, you claim to be pro-white. You claim to care about the white race, but you want to talk about all of this other stuff that you can't do anything about. So don't waste any time with those people. This guy grew up, and we might as well talk about that lesson. This guy grew up in a conservative, Christian, church-going, Christian family, a good family. A father reported to have been in law enforcement for 20-some years, also working in construction, a mother working with handicapped children, a stable home, everything that you could ever ask for. Republican voting parents, a good, clean, safe neighborhood, everything that you could possibly. Praying before they eat, Christians. And he went this anti-white, psychotically, murderously anti-white. What lesson do you learn from that? You learn that conservatism, Christianity, Jesus, Republican voting, good household, mother and father present, both good people, praying before meals, isn't enough to stop the subversion of anti-whiteism. So, if all of that isn't enough to prevent anti-whiteism from taking hold and turning that son into a murderously anti-white monster, then the notion of recourse to one or more of those things now appears idiotic, doesn't it? It should. If you're at least a midwit, it should seem really dumb. More Christianity? More praying? No, didn't work. This is going to maybe not surprise you. Lance them twigs, same kind of home. Christian, Republican voting, conservative, good neighborhood. So the transitioning girlfriend, same exact environment, and produced an anti-white. So now it's doubly dumb if you say what we need is more Christianity. What we need is more praying. What we need is more conservative values. What we need are more stable families. What we need are more mothers and fathers present. Their Facebooks are full of family events. Full of them. And I know there's a little bit of a question for people around. This should be like a revelation, or either a revelation for you or a bolstering of what you're thinking, so tsunamic that it reaches to the far corners of the globe. It should flood in millions of white people. And may God let that happen. I know he will. I know that and let this guy and his girlfriend always be an example to those who say more Christianity, more stable families, more mom and dad, more and more of what has already been defeated. Wouldn't it have been nice if at least 2.5 decades ago, the white sympathetic sphere wouldn't have been populated by such selfish, little dick energy cowards and jealous fools, that they would have heeded me, imagine where we'd be today. Imagine where we'd be today. Well, I beg God to bring down misfortune on them, and I know he will. There are some people who don't have experience with firearms, and I understand around the world that it's hard to understand. How do you shoot something 133 yards away? They haven't held a gun. They've never shot a gun. Millions and millions of Americans hold, own, and shoot firearms. They're not scary to us. There are, at this exact moment, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of hunters that can shoot a cantaloupe at 133 yards. No worries. So I know it seems magical, mysterious, because you just have no experience with it. But I could teach you in 20 minutes how to shoot a cantaloupe at 133 yards with a scope, with a bolt action rifle. But we could do it with a bolt action 22 with 22 long rounds in it. So there won't be much kick. I could position you on your belly prone as he was positioned. Or we could have you sitting with a table and some sandbags holding the end of the rifle. And I guarantee you, maybe even within 10 minutes, I could have you putting a bullet 133 yards downrange, right through a cantaloupe. Now, if you hear about shots that are a mile away, as has happened, what is that? 1,100 some yards. If you hear about that, now we're talking about professionals. If you hear about maybe even 500 yards, you're getting into the range of you're going to need somebody who really, really knows. 750 yards, you're getting into the range of somebody who really, really knows what they're doing. A mile away, then 100%, you're going to need somebody who really knows what they're doing. But 133 yards, shit. I could shoot a squirrel at 133 yards. You just need to have your scope lined up with your rifle so that you can set the crosshairs on your target. And if you got that dialed in, it's going to hit. Even if it's not dialed in, but you know where the error is, you can hit it. Let's continue here. What else is there to know? I mean, there are 6 people who, and potentially here, there is a network, they said in some articles, specifically of transgender or transgender supporters, transgender partners, who could be they speculated in an article, a terrorist network of anti-whites. Charlie Kirk's alleged assassin, Tyler Robinson, was living with a transgender partner. Says here, by the time of this writing, they haven't revealed the name, but they have now revealed. Oh, wait, down here it says it. It says, yet to be identified, is now fully cooperating with the FBI. According to public records, Lance Twiggs, also 22, resided at the same address where Robinson lived. A relative of Twiggs confirmed. They've also found an account that has the exact same name of the Discord server that Tyler Robinson used. That exact same name for a furry sex account. So it's some website where you can look at drawings and maybe photos of people dressed up as furries, but drawings of cartoon characters having sex. Yummy. And not confirmed yet. The family member who, so what happened, by the way? What happened to Tyler? He's in this wonderful family. Well, according to some of the friends from his high school, he began spending a lot of time on Reddit and chatted with anti-whites. Doesn't have to be Mossad agents. We have all met anti-whites. They're psychotic, so many of them. Not all, I imagine. Ears against the door, but so many. So started chatting with them. And so what's the conservative response to this? Tyler goes on Reddit and he spends his time on Reddit learning about anti-whiteism, becomes an anti-white. By the time he gets to that single semester at Utah Valley University, where there have been some claims here or there that he was friends with or had actually associated, maybe been in the group of an anti-white Antifa, subject to later reportage as well. But by this time, he was a fanatical anti-white. The family referring to him as leftist. How did that so easily undo everything? Psychos on the internet. Because anti-whiteism is psychological warfare. And it undermines every other social morality and norm. The family member who asked to not be identified said Twiggs was the black sheep of other St. George, Utah family, but declined to speculate on a romantic relationship. So I was mentioning earlier other reportage that's come out since this, saying of Lance Twiggs and his family, same type of family as Tyler Robinson. So they're saying he was the black sheep of their family. I think sheep might be hitting it a little too closely, if you know what I mean. Although the outfit I saw him in was like a chipmunk. So maybe he was the black chipmunk of the family. She said she didn't know her relative's politics or whether Twiggs was transitioning. Oh, there you have Twiggs. They lived together in an $1,800 per month townhouse. That's a lot of money. And I had read elsewhere that there were a handful of other guys living in the town. I wonder what they were up to. There's also a lot of these, again, with the conspiracy garbage. They're like, neighbors noticed automobiles with license plates from out of state that had visited their home. It's a group of guys living in a townhouse. Some of them, and they are, I mean, yeah. And they said, and they seemed, different. I bet they did. Kind of looked like a certain type of a bar, certain type of a club.
Doctor?
Yes, sir.
I don't see a salad bar.
Look, sir. Maybe they serve seafood.
Not funny, you idiot.
When they came and went. I wonder what they could have been up to. So that, again, doesn't mean Mossad. It doesn't mean the deep state. Kirk 31 was shot in the neck by a single bullet. Okay, you all know that. Do you know how many transgender Americans have been mass shooters over the last 10 years? Asked Hunter Kozak. And during the quick news, we have a, which we'll take a look at here in just a moment before we continue. Little video of too many, Kirk responded. Okay, and then look at him there. Wow. Why is it that so many of these guys become girls? Maybe just in general. Like, are they all ugly? Like, are they ever? And then there's the murderer, alleged, I guess I should say. Here he is, looking all normal. And that's the thing that, of course, is most challenging about this. But what are the conservatives saying? I wanted to finish that thought. What are they saying? They're saying, well, we need to address internet culture, another abstraction, not address anti-whiteism, not address the ideology. They're not saying the best and brightest of cuck thought is not saying, how did Christianity get undermined? How did a stable, loving family get undermined? Mother and father present get undermined. Hardworking dad, mom working with handicapped children. How did that? Father in law enforcement, how did that get undermined? Conservative values, Republican voting. No, they're saying we've got to go after internet culture. We've got to be asking our kids. I mean, this could not sound more dickless and feckless and useless, and it is absolutely what you would expect out of the mouths of white cucks. Absolutely what you would expect. We've got to be talking to our kids about what they're talking about online. Okay. Well, so another non-starter, another boondoggle, another ineffective garbage, another nothing is what you're saying. We've got to be fine. And then they're going to say, Kash Patel, and we have that in the quick news, they're going to go out and they're going to seek out these networks of anti-whites and maybe use RICO charges, maybe, and look at Patel. The guy can't even look straight. He's like, oh, when he's looking at you, Kash and Patel. Do you really believe that's going to come to fruition? And even if it does, how many are going to actually be arrested and charged? And how many of those charged are actually going to be convicted? And how many of those convicted are actually going to get sentences that they deserve? And how much of all of that is actually going to dissuade anti-whites from continuing to anti-white in the world? And all of that put together, even if it all turned out perfectly, which it won't, it does nothing to address the anti-whiteism, the petri dish that creates the networks of anti-whites that conclude, since we can't win the debate, we will murder them. We will dox them. We will get them fired. We will use violence on them. We will maim them. We will threaten them. We will destroy their property. You're dealing with the most superficial element. You know what it's like? You know how superficial it is? It's not even as superficial as you deal with a symptom of cancer. You got cancer, maybe you have fatigue. And so they give you something for the fatigue. No, it's more superficial than that. You have cancer and fatigue, so they will keep the door closed so that no one has to see you tired. That's how superficial that prescription is for remedying this problem, the problem of anti-whiteism. I should mention quickly that conservatives right now, and it's another proof of the work we do in the arguments we make that undergird the dialogic of the Go Free practice. What's happening right now that we are all mightily happy about? Well, it's that a lot of the anti-whites out there are getting fired, are getting reprimanded. By the way, do not miss the fact that there are literally tens of thousands of these individuals making celebratory comments, posts, videos about Charlie Kirk being murdered in this grisly assassination. For every one that will celebrate that brazenly, there are hundreds, maybe even thousands that are also celebrating. And for those, there are hundreds, maybe even thousands that feel good about it. They think, it needed to happen. It needed to happen. He was really in the way of anti-whiteism. So they're not necessarily celebrating, but they still are saying it needed to happen. That's the right thing that had to happen. He was in the way of anti-whiteism and our objectives, so it's good that he went. So keep that in mind to really get an appreciation of what we are up against as a people when it comes to anti-whites and anti-whiteism and what kind of mentality it can engender in them. But back to the people being fired, back to the people losing their jobs. Isn't this something? For how long had we heard the Charlie Kirks of the world, the TPUSA followers of the world, the Tea Partiers of the world telling us that we are above the doxing, that we are above? No, we will shun you. We will push you out of our polite society. You will have no friends. We will push you out. We know the anti-whites won't be your friends, and we will push you out as well if you want to cause any headache to them, because that's not what we are bigger than that. Christ is bigger than that. We have suffered that for our entire lives. We are no better. I cannot tell you how many times I've heard white cuck losers sitting in their cuck chair saying, we are no better than they are if we do what they do. No, but all the way back to when I was in junior high school, having adults tell me that and shouting them down. If you do that, you're no better than they are. Well, the cucks and their ability to stifle the infliction of any difficulties on anti-whites have lost their grip in this one case. In this one case, the day before Charlie Kirk was murdered in this grisly fashion, that principle still held. They're trying to reassert it now. In the wake of all this, in the days and weeks to come, they'll be calling on people to stop getting folks fired, stop the retaliation. Kirk wouldn't have wanted that. He'd want us to come together and just have a conversation. Wouldn't want a response that could injure them in any kind of way. Watch. Because that's how the cucks in their cuck chairs talk and think. Of course, they've got a cuck cage on. What else do you expect? I know that's nasty. Anyhow, because of what are conservatives and patriots and all now moving with great enthusiasm and fervor to get people ruined? Because of a morality that is yet in the body of the white race. It is the grossest of all spectacles, the most immoral thing to celebrate somebody's murder in general. But even that pales in comparison to great jubilation over a televised, grisly murder. This was such an infraction against that white norm that even white anti-whites, even white anti-white Democrat voters who aren't as radical as some of the others are making videos saying they've left the Democrat Party for good. They will never vote for the Democrat Party again. This was the final straw. It was the sickest thing that they'd ever seen. So it was such an infraction of that norm of ours, of this decorum, that it was enough. It was finally big enough. It was finally gross enough to overcome the cuck argument of don't do what they do or you're no bigger than them. Don't do what they do because Jesus wouldn't want it. Finally enough to overcome it. And I couldn't be happier. But we need to remember here, not let it pass our observation, that it is an abridgment of our morality. It is a breaking of our morality that broke through this rule that we have suffered with our entire lives. So what does that mean about motivating our people to extremes like this? Maybe other extremes. What does it mean? It means that you have to appeal morally. There is so much to take away from the events of the past few days if you only have the eyes to see and the ears to hear. If you're a Christian, I hope Jesus will give you the eyes to see and the ears to hear. Maybe that is the name of God. I hope he gives you the discernment to see that you're looking at a prophet or the equivalent thereof. When these truths are plucked out of these events that you never saw yourself. You want white people to break through these conservative barriers to get things done? You want white people to break through social barriers to recapture our destiny? You're going to have to go about it with concepts that focus on our norms, our morality, our sensibilities. And with that, you can motivate them to the stars. Otherwise, you're just pissing in the wind. And it's a hurricane, baby. It's all going right back in your face. Charlie Kirk allegedly assassinated by 22-year-old with trans partner while answering questions about trans shooters. They're making a big deal about this. About it being trans shooters. The guy who was asking the question in the video that he made says he was trying to make the point that the left is anti-whites are sensible and you can talk with them. Arrangements for Charlie Kirk's funeral announced. Trump has promised to attend. New York and New Jersey refused to lower their flags to half-mast. Maybe not the whole states, but there were at least portions. Funeral for conservative activist Charlie Kirk is scheduled for the 21st. I heard that they were also trying to put him in the rotunda. Invite supported to join them. Trump says he's going to be there. There's Erica lying on the coffin that Charlie Kirk is in. Really horrific. And very quickly, I want to point out a couple things like this. Well, here is our friends down in Orania who have lowered their flags to half-mast in honor of half-staff, in honor of Charlie.
Today, the Urania flag hangs at half-mast in solidarity with our American brothers and friends.
And here we have the people, just a little clip of so many people getting fired.
Of people being fired for their comments, appearing to celebrate Kirk's passing, including Office Depot, which fired a worker for refusing to print a memorial poster. Also, the NFL's Carolina Panthers football team said they fired an employee for a social media post appearing to mock Kirk's death. And then Bengals player nonprofit, the Joe Burrow Foundation, also fired an advisory board member who they say made inappropriate remarks in light of recent events.
Those firings are racking up, and many of those social media posts either mocking or celebrating the murder of Charlie Kirk are actually being amplified by conservative influencers or activists with large accounts. Some of these accounts, like Libs of TikTok, have over 4 million followers and are encouraging their audience to contact the employers of of those making the post. And one of those companies facing the online backlash from Kirk supporters is Delta Airlines, the company announcing the suspension and investigation into some of their employees, saying that their social media posts went well beyond healthy, respectful debate and that they were in stark contrast to the company's policies. We've also seen the NASDAQ firing a junior level employee on Friday as well. The NASDAQ also citing zero tolerance policy towards violence and commentary that condones or celebrates the murder of Charlie Kirk.
Are you noticing changes in our country you find troubling? Do you feel unsafe and at a loss to remedy these fundamental shifts? Have you found the book Go Free by Jason Köhne? The Go Free method provides excellent meme curatives and specific language skills to overcome the anti-white psychological warfare being waged against us across the West. Go Free, a guide to aligning with the archetype of Western kind by Jason Köhne, available on Amazon.